Hi all, welcome to an incredibly basic Canva tutorial. As you can see, it is pouring outside, and so if there are any flickering of lights or thunder, just ignore it. It is a pretty crazy storm right now, so hopefully it doesn't interrupt us. But yes, I am here to talk to you all about Canva. If you know absolutely nothing about Canva, you are in the right place. And if you do know a lot about Canva and you want to know some more advanced tips, check out some of my other videos. All right, so first thing is you're going to go to canva.com. Now, Canva is a super user-friendly design software, and you can have a free version or a paid version. I personally have the Pro, which is the paid version, and I believe it's about $120 a year. I find it personally so worth it for my own business. If you're just using it for personal life, or maybe you don't really know what it's all about yet, I would recommend starting with the free and just seeing what you can all do from there and if it meets your needs. So, first of all, we are going to open our first design. So, you're going to make an account, get in there, start with free, like I said, and then you're going to come up here to this purple box next to your profile and do create a design. Now, Canva has plenty of different sizing templates already for you, so it is super easy to create exactly what you're looking for. So, if you're looking for a letter sized flyer, or if you're looking for an Instagram post, or a Facebook post, or a YouTube thumbnail, anything you're looking for, you can literally just type it in this search bar. So, I use Instagram posts quite often. You can see some of these suggested ones right here. They have a square post and they also have a portrait post. So I typically go with the square. So you're just going to click that in order to open it. And if you wanted to make a custom size, you also have that ability as well. So that'll be right here, custom size. It will be in default in pixels. So you'll go ahead and change that to inches, millimeters, centimeters, whatever you need for your design. And then you go ahead and put the width and height in there and it'll let you create your design. So that's how we're going to open up our file. So now we have a blank file. First thing I like to do is rename the file. So up here, we are just going to do Canva test. We'll put that in there. So you can just click into it whenever and it auto saves. That's the best thing about this too, is that it auto saves everything you're doing. If you're unsure, you'll see right up here by this little cloud, it'll say all changes saved. If you're making changes, you might see like some dots or it'll be paused if your internet connection goes out. But for the most part, you will see that your changes are auto-saved, which is super, super nice. All right, so next we are going to have some fun. We're going to go into our design tab over here, and this tab is going to be for all of the templates that they have. If you see a crown next to them, which I don't know if mine will, okay, there's one. If you see a crown and pro next to it, that's going to be a pro template or a pro feature. So you'll see certain fonts and certain elements will have the pro next to them. But if they don't have the crown next to it, that's going to be a free feature. Sorry, the thunder's throwing me off. Okay, so we are just going to pick a free one, I think. And another thing you could do is up here, if you're looking for something specific, which I like to look for, like checklist, for example, it'll come up with a bunch of different checklist designs. So this is what I recommend if you're just starting out, is finding a template you like and then customizing that template. And I'll show you a couple tips on how we do that as well. So let's just look up real estate and we'll see what we get. And I will use a free one. I do like this one. We'll go with this. So then you're just going to click it to pull it in there. And the rest that show up are going to be suggestions, kind of similar to the one that you've chosen. And then we're going to pop out of here. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure that I don't miss anything. Next thing we are going to do is duplicate this page. So I like to do this because then we try to keep the elements in similar spots so that the design is still intact, but we can personalize it. So instead of just changing everything on here and then we get a little bit out of hand and then it starts to not look like it anymore, I like to make a duplicate copy. So now we have two pages. If you wanted to make a blank sheet, you'll just do this add page and it'll make a blank sheet for you. But then if you do this one with the plus, that's going to be duplicate page. So we're going to have a duplicate page. You can also name your pages up here. So you could just say like Marissa's version or something like that. And that'll autosave as well. So first thing we're going to do is changing the fonts. So you're going to go ahead and click on one of the fonts and you'll see this top bar pull up. So over on the left-hand side, it'll show you what font you are currently using. It'll show recently used fonts, any that you have in your brand kit, any uploaded fonts. That's another thing that we can get into at a later date. But I just want to stick to the basics for now. So like I said, you'll see the crown next to the Pro fonts and features. But then if they don't have a crown, that means that it's going to be a free feature. So we can go in here and this drop down will also show different versions of that font. So if it has a regular, a bold, and italic, it is going to be the whole font family right in here if we do the drop down. So we're just going to change it just for the sake of changing it. We'll change it to Georgia Pro. So we're going to go with light here. And then since this one is a little bit bolder, if we look back at our other design, we're seeing like this one is a little bit thinner and this one's a little bit bolder. We want to kind of stick with that design. Obviously, once you get pretty comfortable with it, you can veer outside the design a little bit more. But just for the sake of staying basic, we want to just keep it pretty similar. So we could go with the bold, and now we've changed our font, but it still has the integrity of the design still intact. So same thing with this one. We see the price starts at, and that is not as bold. It's kind of like a light one. So I'm trying to remember. I think I just used Georgia Pro. So we're going to use light for that one. Price starts from. And then we'll use bold for this one just to change our fonts out. You can also come down to the bottom. My little thing is covering it, but you can change all from Montserrat Classic. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. I think it's Montserrat Classic to Georgia Pro. You could go ahead and change all of those. So then across the board, it'll just change them, which is really nice. But then I think it changes up here as well. So that's the only thing is it'll change across your entire design. So if you have multiple pages, that might not be what you want. Okay, so we just changed our fonts. You can also change the color. So when you see this bar with the A, you can change text color. I'm just going to go through and talk about this top bar and all of the features that you can do with your fonts. So let's click on for sale just because we're going to add effects and that'll probably look a little bit nicer on that one. So if you want to change the font size, you can come in here and click and it'll have just kind of nice round numbers. Otherwise, you can just do the minus sign to make it a little bit smaller, or you can do the plus sign to make it a little bit larger. I honestly don't use this feature on Canva too much. I actually just kind of drag it and change the size that way. That's kind of what I prefer. But if you have something in place and you're really liking the place it's in and you just want it to be a little bit bigger, you don't want to move it around too much, you can definitely use this and it'll go 1 point at a time when you do it like that. Another thing is there are grid lines in Canva. So if you want to make sure that something is centered in your design, you'll just drag it until you see a nice line coming down the center. You can also center it right in the very middle, because then this is probably not the best example because you can't see very well, but there should be a line across and a line coming down. So you should be able to see if your fonts are centered or not. And then you can also use the arrow keys. Of course, you just click on it and then use the arrow key to move it up or sideways, down, whatever you want. If you want to change the color, you'll go to this text color and you can pull colors from the document. So if you come here and do the eyedropper, you could pull a color from the document and it'll change it like that. Control Z will reverse your changes. Otherwise, you can come up here and do undo or redo. I just like using Control Z. It's very easy and just right at your fingertips. So I'd recommend that. Otherwise, you can have brand colors, which I'm not going to get into today, but maybe in an intermediate Canva video, we'll get into brand colors. You can also pull from photo colors, which is pretty cool. I like using this because it just offers a more consistent design, because see, it's pulling from the leaves right here. So then it just kind of makes it a little bit cohesive and looks really nice together. We're going to go back to that white though. You can have things be bold or not bold, italic. So we can do italic. Some of these won't always have those features. So depending on the font you use, you might not have the ability to make it bold or italic, just so you know. We can underline it. We can strike through. I also use this quite a bit in uppercase and lowercase toggle. So, anytime you are writing out text and you're like, okay, I just wrote all that out and I really wanted it to be uppercase. Instead of having to redo it all, you can just click this toggle. Then we have the alignment. So it could be center justified. You can do left justified. We've just got, actually, I think that's center justified technically. Or we could do to the right. So that's your options for alignment. We could also do a nice bullet point, and then if you click it again, it'll come up with a list, a numbered list. And if you click it again, it'll stop. So I also use this quite a bit. I'm going to add another line here so I can show you what it does. So we'll just type in for sale, modern home for sale. I am just going to Control A to select everything in that text box, and then spacing. We can change the line spacing or the letter spacing, which is cool. So letter spacing is going to change the characters themselves, so each letter, and we can make it tighter, we can make it more far away, wider. I'm forgetting words here. And then the line spacing I actually use the most. So if we want to just move this up a little bit closer, if we notice like let's say for example that was like default and we're like, oh, that looks really far away. Well, no worries, because you can change it. So I like to tighten that up typically, just like that. And then we'll leave that as is. Next thing are effects. So I'm going to bring this for sale, this bold one, back in, just so I can show you on here. And we're going to click on effects. So there's a lot of different text effects that you can use. My most used are shadow, lift, and neon. I also use the curve here and there. So I'll show you what they all look like. With shadow, you can change the way that it's going, the transparency of it, if it has some blur to it, and then you can also come to this color box and change the color that it is. So if we use this darker blue and then we offset it maybe a little bit more, we can start to see it a tiny bit more. Well, I should turn on my blur then probably, but now we can see it's coming up a little bit more. Lift, we'll just lift it right off the page. There's no color option for that. I don't know if you can hear the thunder, but it's pretty crazy. Okay. Anyways, so you can change the intensity on that. Typically when I do lift, I'll just drag the intensity all the way to 100. And honestly, if I were going to use an effect, I would probably use lift on this design in particular. Neon, I really like, just because it makes things glow. So I usually bring the intensity all the way up for that as well. And then if you change the color of the font, the glow will be a little bit different. So if we're changing it to this green, typically that'll be the glow on the outside, and then the inside will be like a bright white. So if you drag the intensity all the way to 100, that's kind of the effect that you're going to get. So I really like using it that way. If we go back to effects and we kind of drag the intensity down, then it still looks neon, but it's not as in your face. So I like to drag the intensity all the way up on that. If we come back to none, and I'm just going to change this back to white. Another effect that's pretty cool actually is background. It might not look cool right off the bat, but you can change the color of the background. So we could change it to this dark blue, and then we can also round the corners. So you could have it like this and have it be a little more rectangular. Otherwise, you can round the corners and have it be a little more circular, like so. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. I have been using that a little more recently than I used to before. You can also make the spread smaller or larger depending on how much of a background that you want, and you can also change the transparency of it too. Okay, so we'll just remove that, and then we'll come down to curve. Curve is fun because you can curve it downward or you can curve it upward, and it just adds a nice little effect. So those are some of the most used effects. Obviously, there are a couple other ones there too. but those are some of the ones that I personally use the most. All right, and then we are going to do a font animation. Typically, if I were doing an Instagram post, I would just save this as an image, so I really wouldn't have a need for an animation. However, if you are saving this as a video, you might want an animation. So that's another thing up here that we have is animations, and there are several different kinds, and they are really nice and professional. There's a lot of different options. There's a writing one, which is nice for if you're doing videos. So if you have reels, TikToks, shorts, YouTube videos, I like using the typewriter a lot for the text effects. But yes, there are a whole bunch of different ones that you can use. So love using these when I'm making a video. And then moving over, we have position. So this used to be just like the arrange section right here, but they recently added the layers section, which I really enjoy. So I'm going to use this on the picture just for a better example, I think, than the text will give. But if we shoot this backward, then we can see that this rectangle right here is now in front of the picture. And then if we do it all the way to front, it'll be even in front of this thing. So we can move it backward again so that we have it behind the price information. I really like that they added layers in because you can come over here and see all of your elements, and then you just drag and drop to change the order of them. So if I wanted to drag the picture all the way to the back, I could drag it right under this. Actually, I don't know if it'll let me go to the background, but I could drag it behind things. I can drag it in front of things. I can drag it wherever I want. So I really like this when you have kind of a lot going on, and you can also grab a couple of things and then shift and then just drag all of them. So I like that too. All right, we're just going to Control Z until we get back to our beginning, how it was looking. So that's position and that's layers. And then we also have transparency. So if we click on this image right here, and it doesn't just have to be the image, it could be the text as well. This is your transparency button right here. So we can take down the transparency and have it be a little more see-through. I like to do this with images a lot if they're in the background of, if they are like the main background of my main background of my design. So I'm going to pull in one real quick so I can kind of show you what I mean. So it'll be like this one. If we took off this bar, this would be pretty hard to read now. But if we click on our image and we take down the transparency and we change these to a different color, it's going to be a little mad at me because I have elements selected too. So those elements will just leave white. But this is something we could do, for example, or we could go back to white and have the transparency all the way up. I'm going to teach you about shortcuts in a second, but just so you know, we'll just speed through this real quick. You can add a rectangle and we'll drag it out. This is like my default color, so that's why it's showing up pink. But if we wanted it to be this dark blue, and then let's say that I want it to be in front, I want it to be behind everything except for my picture. So these are like those little pictures that we have, and then we'll just put it right in front of that. If I just take down the transparency now on this blue, it'll allow the text to be easier to be read, but we'll also have that nice picture in the background peeking through. So I like to do that quite often. All right, next, moving on to elements. So this is another tab over here that we have, and you can use shapes or you can do lines. There are graphics. So up here, you can search for pretty much anything. You can even search for social media logos. So if you search Instagram, and then you can go to graphics and see all. You can look at all the Instagram logos and icons that they have, and then we could search house. It'll come up with house. We have lots of different options. And I feel like there was something else I was going to search, but now I can't remember. So if we wanted to add a house right at the top of this, we could just come in here and add our house, and we can drag it. We can also change the color for most of these, and that will be right up here. So we're just going to change this one to white so that it matches our line right there, and make sure that it's in the center. I'm going to move it up a little bit so that it's not so close to the text. And grab it again, just arrow down. So there we have an element, and you can also do shapes and frames. So if we go back out to all, if you search circle, you can find the circle right here, but otherwise there's all graphics, photos, videos, shapes, audio, frames, and charts. So charts is cool because if you ever want to make a nice visual with some data, they do have the ability for that. Frames are awesome. I use them all the time. So we're just going to make some room on here. So I'm just going to delete that phone number right there. And then I'm going to pull in a circular frame and resize it to the bottom. And then if we wanted to put our headshot in here, we could just come to uploads and we could find a headshot. And don't worry, I'm getting to uploads in a second. So we could find a headshot. We just pull our picture in. And now you'll notice that it is not centered how I like it to be. If we double click on the picture, we can drag and readjust it. We can even make it larger so that our face is a little more up close, but that's a little too close. So we'll just drag it back like that and have it be center, click out, and now it is all readjusted and things like that. So elements, like I said, you can go to shapes, and any of these are able to be a different color. So if we go to shapes, now that it's not getting rid of my circle. Okay, if we come back to shapes somewhere, there we go. See y'all. You have tons of different things for shapes. You also have tons of different lines as well. And lines obviously can be longer or shorter. You can adjust those as needed, and you can change the color, you can change the style of the lines, you can round the ends, you can change the weight. So if you want the line weight to be bigger, you can change it like that. Lots of possibilities to customize. And then shapes as well. If you wanted this little conversation box and we wanted to make that a different color, we could do that. We can readjust it. Some of these shapes too, you can make them longer, like this one. So you can really customize the shapes. If you were to just search up here, circle, you could get a whole bunch of different graphics, and you wouldn't necessarily be able to customize all of these, but you would have a lot of different options right there. So those are elements. And numbers and elements. This is another thing that you can search. So if I'm looking for a number 5 and I want it to be a nice, cool graphic, I can look up a number 5 in here instead of just typing a text like number 5. So if I want to use this one, I can come up here, and this is where you can change multiple different colors. So I could make this one blue instead. Actually, I want to make that like a little bit darker. There we go. And I can also rotate. So this is the little rotate icon, and we can rotate that however we want. It tells you what you're rotating to as well. So if you want it to be a 90-degree angle, you can do a 90-degree. You can also flip your elements as well. So I'm not gonna, I'll just show you with the 5. So up here, if we're clicked on the element, you can flip it vertically or you can flip it horizontally. So that might be nice if you really like an element, but you're like, oh, I wish this was on the other side. You can flip it. So that's another thing you can do with elements. Next, we are going to upload some pictures. So uploads is going to be all of your own personal content. So these are going to be, headshots that I've uploaded or other data that I've uploaded. You can also upload videos. And you can upload audio as well. So if you want some background music or maybe like a little jingle, you can put that in there as well. Images is what I use the most. So if we come into our File Explorer and we pull in this photo, that's all we have to do is just drag and drop into there, and it'll start loading and it'll come up. Otherwise, you can always click on Upload Files and upload that way. And then you will be able to use these in your design and resize them however you want. What else did I have on that? Photos as well. So these are all of Canva's assets that they have, and you can search photos in here. Some of the things that I really like to search our home or interior design or cozy home, kitchen, living room, things like that, because I like to use the insides of homes more than the outsides. Just because sometimes we'll get like a nice looking beach home, and we're over here in Wisconsin. And so we're like, the houses don't look like that over here. So I really like to use pictures of homes from the inside, because this could be a home anywhere. And I just think it offers a nice aesthetic to the post. So, even for this one, for example, we could switch it out to be something like this, and it would be the inside of the house. That's another thing I guess I forgot to mention, is if you want it to take up the entire background, you will drag it into the design, but wait until it just like pops over the entire thing. If you drag it in like this, it's just going to be an image right on top. But if you drag it more towards the corner and the outside of the design, it'll pop in as the background. So that's how you can use that. Actually, we'll bring that back. And yes, you can search pretty much anything you want in here. Real estate, we could search. It'll come up with a whole bunch of different results for you. We could do technology, come up with nice backgrounds, nice images for you to use. Of course, I got cut off because my other video reached 30 minutes. So here we are. I have a couple things left that I want to share with you before I end this video. So saving designs. Up here, we've got our design. You're going to come up to share, download, and then you can change the type. I like to use PNG a lot of the time, but you can do PDF standard, PDF print. You can do videos and GIFs, GIFs, however you want to say it. I've heard the great debate. Okay, anyways, moving on. Sizing, you can change the sizing for larger quality. And then you can select what pages you want. If you have Pro, you could also do a transparent background. So if you have a cutout picture of yourself, you could change or you could download a transparent background. Also, if you had like a logo or something, that might be another thing you'd want to use it for. But you can come in here and click all pages. That's going to save it in a zip file. So you're going to have to open up the zip folder and then extract the content that you have. Otherwise, you can just go ahead and do them one at a time, and they're just going to download as a regular picture. So if we go like this and download, it's going to start downloading right here, and it'll tell you when it's done. It's going to pop up at the top and showing your downloads. And then I also want to talk about shortcuts real quick. So Canva shortcuts, we've got R for rectangle or square. And if you hold down the shift key, it will change it according to size. If you let go of the shift key, you can change it all over the place. C for circle, pretty much same thing for that. Actually, I guess not. I guess it'll just go as a circle. There's no oval. So we've got that. Nice. My battery's low now too. Anyways, we've got circle, we've got rectangle. If you do T, that's going to give you text. So that one I use quite often. And then if you hold down the Alt key and drag, it will create a duplicate of it for you. So I use that one a lot too. And then if you do Control C and Control V, it'll copy paste. Control V is copy, Control C is copy, Control V is paste. So I am pretty sure that is everything that I wanted to share with you. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you learned a lot. And be on the lookout for more Canva tutorials and videos. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.